Special treat for tuning in this week, and it is the Yashica T Series. I was able to visit Fixed Cameras, and we pulled these all out. I have a couple of them. Mine is the T4, but the other ones are from the shop. Pretty cool thing I want to do for a long time. Looking at these cameras, one interesting thing about them, the shutter is always in the top right. It changes over time. The Yashica TF, T2 have these more boxier ones, and then the T3 and T4. The T4 is obviously messed up, but we'll talk about it a little later. Have a rounder one. T3 and T4 add another really cool feature, a waist level viewfinder. So for people looking at street photography, shooting discreetly, this comes in really handy. So you don't have to put the camera up to your eye. You can shoot waist level, which is a really cool feature. And I'm surprised that some modern cameras don't incorporate this. Width-wise, the T2 is actually probably the widest one. The TAF original was probably a little thinner. And then the T4, obviously the smallest and thinnest one. So the T4 was a major improvement in terms of design. As you can see, more modern, smaller, sleeker. Here's my glasses as a reference. Height-wise, same deal. The TAF is on the far left, and then that's T2, T3, and the T4. T4 is a lot smaller. So let's talk about each camera individually. First one's the TAF, the originator. And sorry I don't have a lot of dates on these. I couldn't actually find that much stuff on these. The TAF is the most 80s looking one. It doesn't have DX coding for film. Rewind releases on the bottom. Flash, like on all the Ts, are built into the camera. But this is a pretty good camera. I think the issue with this, I actually used it, and I had a lot of autofocus issues with this one. So the autofocusing wasn't perfected yet when this came out. That's an insane date back. That's way too much. Next one's the T2. T2 I've used, and I think it works pretty well, but I just don't like the way it looks. It's kind of a tweening between the older TAF and the newer T4s and T3s. Button placement on the top, kind of ugly. Nothing really sexy about this camera. I believe that the autofocus started getting a little better. Can't remember if I shot with this one, but autofocus wasn't as bad as the TAF, which was a lot of hunting and pecking. The one thing I didn't like about this camera is they use a really weird battery, the 2CR5. Kind of impossible to get now. I bet you could get it, but very inconvenient. So out of the T series, my least favorite one. The next one we're going to talk about is the T3. T3 is moving more towards a modern camera. T3 is the only one with the 35-2.8 lens. I think all the other ones have 35-3.5s. Again, the Carl Zeiss lenses, so pretty nice lenses. A little bit of back history is that Yashica was making lenses for Zeiss and at this point in the 80s. In the 90s now, it's Sony, and Sony's getting Zeiss lenses. So this is the story. This is the first one that adds the waist level viewfinder. I remember shooting with this one, and I think the autofocus is getting incrementally better, but not a lot better. So T3 autofocus is a little bit better than the T2. And that's the back. The rewind mechanism, because there's no back, it's easy to see, is very similar in all three models. So not much variation and improvement there. So the T4, the granddaddy of them all. This is the one that sells for $400 or $500. This is the one that was made famous by Terry Richardson and other fashion photographers. The really good things about this are the flash is amazing. So when you go to parties and you're at night and you're using that flash on its own, it just works, and it works very well. Autofocus is fast and speedy. The design is more modern. It fits in your pocket. Button layout's a lot better. So you're probably hearing that you're probably reading in that this is easily my favorite of the T series, and it is. The one thing is that the issue comes down to these are plastic bodies, and for the price you're paying, like $300-$400, it's not that durable of a camera. It's kind of brittle. And that's because it has plastic bodies, and these are like beginning to be 20 to 15-year-old cameras. And so that's the last thing I want to talk about, pricing. So people pay a lot for these cameras, especially the T4, $300 or $400, and I think that's a bit much. I think if you're looking for a point and shoot camera, maybe better to get something digital, to be honest, and then maybe looking at other smaller point and shoot cameras like the Olympus Stylus Epic. But if you want a point and shoot camera that's amazing and it's going to work every time and it takes great shots and has a great flash and it's going to hold its value, the Yashica T4 Super D is a very good option. Is it better than something like this Olympus Stylus Epic? Not by a lot, but the value is going to be there and you're going to be able to sell this camera probably for as much as you got it for, if it's still in working condition. There's also looking at other cameras like the Contax T2 and things like that, which are a step above this camera. But the Yashica T4, probably that's why it's so famous and so collected, because it's right there. It's like it's affordable to some degree, and it's a very good camera, so a very good point and shoot camera. And I would say that it's probably one of the best point and shoot cameras for 35mm film. If you want to get better cameras, you're going to have to pay a lot more, and I'm not sure if it's a lot better. The pictures from this camera have been used in a lot of magazines and a lot of editorials. It just looks great. So it has a contrasty feel that you get from these Zeiss lenses. And so, yeah, they're really overpriced, and I think the rest of the T series, paying more than $50-$60 for a body, probably overkill. I think you can get a good film SLR with a lens for around that same price, and that's what I would do if you want to get into film photography. If you're looking at a point and shoot, take a hard look at the Olympus Stylus Epic, a very great camera. That's a lot cheaper, selling for $30 to $40. And I think it's a lot easier to use. The T's before the Yashica T4 had terrible autofocus. And that's just the truth. I've shot with them before. I did not like the autofocus on them. So the T4 for me is the clear winner, my favorite. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like it and to subscribe to my channel. Also, if you want to see something else covered, remember to put it in the comments. And if you want to see any other cameras covered, remember to put it in the comments too. Thanks. Bye.